I want to add a pocket on the front, a zipper pocket. So I have a zipper here, and I'm going to be placing here. It's going to be a Welt pocket, a zipper pocket, and it's going to have a bag behind it. So I've cut out the piece for the bag, and the way you cut that out is you need to cut the width 1 inch, 1 inch for each side, so 2 inches longer than the zipper teeth, the teeth itself, not the tape. So it may actually be the width of your tape. It depends on the zipper that you have. Some of them have longer tapes than others. So you want to measure the actual metal or plastic part, the actual teeth part, from top to bottom, and then add 2 inches for the width. Now for the length, you want to figure out how deep you want the bag, and then you double it so that you can fold it in half, and that would be your pocket. So after I cut out the piece, I marked on the back. I don't know if you can see these lines, but for 1 inch down, I drew a line going across, leaving 1 inch on either side gap. And then I went down 3/8 of an inch and drew another line, and then I drew a center line, and then 3/8 of an inch from the edge at the end, I made a little triangle on either side. Now I'm going to be placing this on the front part, matching centers. I folded both the centers here and here, and I had to figure out where I want the zipper. I kind of want the zipper to show right under where it says New York, so it's kind of like it's underlining it. So I'm going to make sure that this line goes right where I want it, and that it's centered on the fabric and on the pocket, and make sure they both match, and that this is right where I want it. Then we are going to stitch around this square. You may want to pin this down. You don't have to. If you're using a lighter fabric, I'm just using more of the duck canvas for the pocket, you're going to want to interface it before you do any sewing. Because if you're using a lightweight fabric, it may rip or tear through use. So it's always good to interface it. But I'm using this duck canvas. It doesn't need interfacing. It's pretty heavy duty. If you use the pack cloth for the pocket, that will not need any interfacing. But if you wanted to just use a quilting cotton or something just for the pocket lining, then you want to interface it. So now I finished sewing around all 4 sides. I've cut out along this line, keeping a triangle here and down the middle and to the other triangle here. So next, we're going to press it. If you're using the nylon pack cloth, which you may not be able to press, or you'd have to use a lighter heat setting to do so, and you just can't get it to press clearly, you could, instead of pressing like this, which is what we're going to do, you could instead understitch this to the seam allowance. So you just sew along here, catching this seam allowance here in it, and you could just do that all the way around. You can't really do it on the triangle area. You wouldn't want to do it from the corner. You want to do it a little over, and just understitch from like here to here, this, and then do the same thing on this side. But I'd rather press it, and this is cotton canvas, so I am going to press it. First, I'm just going to kind of mess this all up, so I'm just going to do a quick press. But then I'm going to fold this over, like that, press this, I'm going to do the other side. With the canvas, you want to use a lot of steam, because it's hard to press even though it's cotton. Well, cotton can be hard to press in general, but it's thicker. Oh. I got that side, and then I'm going to turn this to do a little bit of this corner. There. And then do the same thing on the other side here. Now I got this all pressed. I turn it to the other side, so now the pocket is being moved to the back inside of the bag, which is where you want it. And you're going to press all the way around the edges again. Make sure that's even. If you're using the nylon pack cloth, the understitching should make it so you don't have to press here. But you could press the nylon with the light setting. If your iron has a nylon setting, use that. If it doesn't, then probably the lowest setting, like a silk or even lower, will work. So now I got this all pressed out. You see on the other side. That looks really nice. So next, what I'm going to do, you grab your zipper and you center it in the little opening here. So you're going to center this so that the metal parts are inside this little opening. And you're going to put a pin in. And you're going to stitch around all around here. Top stitch it. To make it easier on your zipper, you could, you see how it separates here, you could put a stitch in here while it's open a little bit so you can get it together and to hold those in. And then you could do the same thing over here. I don't do that, but that may make it easier if you're having a hard time getting these two ends together. So now I have this top stitch in place. I use black thread so you can see it more easily. So you might want to use a color that matches better. And actually I kind of like the black contrast with the, the New York here. And with my daughter's bag here, I actually stitched the whole thing with black on here. I used regular polyester thread on her bag. But on this bag, I am actually using a nylon upholstery thread that's actually thicker, and I'll be using it in all my future bags so to make sure the thread is nice and strong. Now, for the next step, I turn this over, and what you're going to do is you're going to fold up the bag. And then you're going to stitch along here, here, and here to finish the bag. As you stitch, you're going to want to pull the fabric away like this, so to make sure that you're only stitching to the layers of the pocket and not through this fabric. So you do this side, you pull it away, you do this side, you pull it away, and you get to the side, you pull it away until you're done. Once you've sewn up the whole bag, it'll be all set. You open up your zipper, and you will have a bag. It's nice using a contrast color. Now I finished sewing the pocket. It stays here, it doesn't attach to the bag at all, so it just hangs loose. And then you can just open up your zipper and you can see inside it is a completed pocket here. You can put things in there, and that is all done. Now you can sew up the bag, your backpack, from there on as normal. You don't have to take any special considerations unless, no, actually that won't even catch. If you do a bigger pocket, if you do a wider or longer, you do want to make sure that you don't go beyond the seam allowance on the bottom. And if these corners go out further than the curve here, then, I mean, you can catch it in the seam, that's fine, that will hold it in place more. But you might want to just cut it before, if you don't want it in the seam, cut it before you stitch this up so that you can stitch along the curve you make. But that's only if you want a wider pocket, you would need to do that. So you just need to be careful of the seams when you're sewing. Now, another problem is that this is what the inside of your bag would look like. If you look at my daughter's bag here, Um, you can see inside. You see where I settled the patch on there. You can see the seam allowance here, which I finished. You can even see that when I wash this fabric, it kind of turns white a little bit on the inside. If you don't want to see this pocket on the inside of there, what you could do is you could cut out another piece of fabric. It doesn't have to be duck canvas or the tack nylon. It could just be any fabric that could take some wear, because it will be rubbed up against frequently. And you can use it as a lining to the pocket. And basically what you do is you would sew these two layers to your backpack as one. So you could baste around the edges. Another thing you can use is like the ripstop nylon, or those lightweight nylons you could find at places like Joann's. I wouldn't make a bag out of those, but you could use it as a lining fabric. And that way, when you open up your bag, you're only going to see solid. You're not going to see this pocket hanging here. Another thing you could do, instead of making this pocket, you could have just sewed the zipper to this without this other layer, doing the same, pretty much the same thing, but just without this layer. You'd have to fold in all these pieces, fold in this fabric instead. You cut it, fold it, and then you stitch around, holding the zipper in place, and not have this pocket, and then put a lining and just have the whole area between these two layers as your pocket. But that would make for a pretty deep pocket, and you might not like that. So the bag is a good idea if you don't want a deep pocket. So that is how to add a zipper pocket to the front.